Thank you. I have a lot of experiences that freak me out. And I think I know a lot of things, and then I go through an experience and then I realize I don't know nearly as much as I think I know. And this is one of those experiences. I've been a developer and a designer, spent a lot of time making things accessible, or what we believe to be accessible. And had kind of the walls fall in on me a little bit. Not really, I'm like metaphorically speaking. We were working with a client, and they wanted and needed a custom video player. And so we built that custom video player. This is said video player on the screen here, pretty straightforward, pretty simple player. And this was designed to connect right into their big, massive digital library. And that was all coming through a third-party streaming service. And so we put a lot of work into this, and it went really well. And we were using agile methodologies. So we were in, like, I think about, we were after about 4 sprints of work. We said, okay, we're ready to do some testing, not just our testing, but let's do some usability testing with this, with people with disabilities, and see how this goes. And it worked reasonably well, but there were some pieces that we were way less than satisfied with. I want to draw your attention to this little piece down here. If you take a look here, you see this timeline. We've got our play button, we've got our little time indicator, and we've got this little circle. What is that circle called? Yeah, we don't even know what to call it, right? And it lives on this thing, which is like our timeline. Technically, if this were to be called a slider, which in many cases it is, because watch out for that. This may be considered a slider. It's the timeline, but technically when we build it, we might call it a slider. That little circle, the dot, is called the thumb. So we take the thumb, we move it along the rail, and we drop it. It's drag and droppable, all these different features. We had built it as a slider, and we got some feedback on this, and we thought that this was a really simple thing to do. And it was simple to build the interface, but we got some interesting feedback when we put it together. So the first thing, and some of you that have seen me speak before, you may have been through this with me. If you have, just humor me. If you haven't heard me speak before, you have probably not done this ever, so we're going to do this together. If you're able to see the screen, I would like for you to take either your left hand or your right hand and hold it up. Crowd participation, this is like, okay. Now, pretend you're holding onto a straw, a really tiny straw. And you're going to look through that straw at the screen, and we're going to complete a task. So everybody good with that so far? So you're looking through the straw. Now, if you're looking through the straw, you have to, you can put your straws down for a second. If you're looking through the straw, you have to close the other eye or cover it so that you're not cheating and looking at the interface unimpeded. So what we're doing here, and we're going to do exactly what we did with our usability tests. So we facilitate usability tests with people with different disabilities all the time. So we had a very simple task, and that very simple task was to go to the 10-minute point of the video. Pretty straightforward, seems very simple, not so simple. So what I would like you to do is to put your straws up and to take that thumb that's on the slider and move to the 10-minute point of the video, please. Now, it should become immediately obvious to you that as you're looking through the straw and you're looking at that thumb and you're moving it across the slider, that you instantly lose the feedback that you had that told you at what point the movie or what point the video was. And we got that feedback and we were like, wow, we need to do better at this. We had people tell us very specifically, I only see a small amount of the screen at a time. I couldn't see the time counter to the left of the slider. I had to move the position dot to the right, guess how far I should go, let go of the dot, and move my mouse to the left to read the time counter. Now, getting to somewhere around the 10-minute mark is maybe not that big of a deal. This is going to be dangerous. We could look at this and see that the video is 22 minutes and 40 seconds long, and so we know that 10 minutes is maybe roughly somewhere in the middle. However, For someone with low vision, what we did by using that straw test, we're artificially and very, very, like this is a really crude simulation of what it might be like to have some form of low vision. There's lots of different forms of low vision, and they all have different effects. But one of the effects is having kind of that tunnel vision, where you can only see a small portion of the screen at a time. Sometimes that small portion is because of the physical, actual manifestation of your vision. For some people, being able to see a small portion of the screen is because they're using a screen magnifier, right? So it could be because of vision itself, or it could be because of the tool that they're using. Either way, we get to a point where when I can only see a small portion of the screen, I've lost all context as soon as I start to drag that thing over. So how do we fix that? What can we do to... Everybody's going to be watching me the whole time, and I feel like I need to... Now I'll trip over the whole box and not just the... Well, that's not my good side. Well, then I'm going to... Yeah, I'm going to go right down the stairs. So, yeah, this is very dangerous. How can we fix this? We've got a disconnect between the thumb and the timer. There's a pretty simple design fix to change that, right? So we can make it so that this number, it still stays there, but as soon as we start to drag that, we could just pop up a version of the number there, we could put it right below, we could do all kinds of things, right? We made this so that it was really technically sound and very technically compliant. But that didn't make it easy to use for somebody that had low vision, right? We also didn't anticipate getting comments back like this. I couldn't find a way to move ahead. I did try the slider, but it didn't appear to be adjustable. This happened to be a person that was using an older version of a screen reader. They hadn't upgraded. They were on version, like I think at the time it was JAWS 15 that was kind of like the latest and greatest, and that person happened to be on JAWS 10 because it cost too darn much to upgrade. They were afraid to upgrade, right? There's cost issues. We've worked with all kinds of people that they don't want to upgrade because the last time they upgraded, what happened? It stopped working, and so they rolled it back. Right? This happens all the time. We set these technical goals like, hey, we're going to make it so that it works in the latest and greatest minus 2 versions, right? And that's like, that's because we've been doing that with browsers forever. And so we think that we can do the same thing with assistive technology. We kind of can't. So we get to a point where we're like, we need to really roll this back a lot more. So they didn't appear to be adjustable. Now, if you take a look, I'm going to show this one more time here. If you take a look at this video player that we made, we were going for simplicity, and one of the things that we did not include, because we thought we're going to make that slider super accessible, we did not include a fast forward and a rewind button. Because we've got a really accessible slider, this should work really well. Turns out, didn't quite work out that way. We actually had, and some people, I remember, I don't have these comments in here, but I remember getting feedback from people about the slider that they said, I don't even know what a slider is. I've been blind since birth. I don't know what you're even talking about. We had people come back and say, what's a slider? We had a label on it that said it was the timeline slider, but that didn't actually mean anything. So we went through all of these different things, and we actually said, okay, we need to do the next iteration here. So we do 2 more sprints, and we put it through another round of usability testing. And we decide we're going to add a fast forward and a rewind button. The task instantly becomes that much more easy for people to accomplish. Because if they couldn't use the slider, or didn't want to use the slider, or didn't know what the slider was, they had the fast forward and rewind buttons. So they were able to more readily get to that 10-minute mark. Now, the fast forward and the rewind buttons don't fix the problem for somebody with low vision, but they certainly helped for somebody that was using a screen reader. There was also, I think, built into the text on the fast forward and rewind button, it was like go forward by 30 seconds, or there was like a time cue on there so that they knew how far they were going forward. So there's a lot of things that we did, but we got this feedback. It seems like the screen reader doesn't want to stay within the slider bar. So we were having some issues basically with, again, different assistive technology. They were able to move the slider or move that thumb along the rail, no problem. But as soon as we made an announcement that this was the time that they were at, the focus left that slider and was back on the player in general. So they had to go hunt for the controls again. So the buttons, though, worked well. So by putting those buttons there, we made this a little bit easier for somebody to use. Now, there's a whole lot of, technically it worked. Like the focus, we didn't move the focus from the little slider. When we got to that point and somebody dropped it at 6 minutes, we didn't say, oh, we put it at 6 minutes. Let's move the focus to a random spot just to mess with people, right? We didn't move the focus, but for whatever reason, when they were using it, the focus wasn't staying put the way it was supposed to. So we built in another mechanism to do the same thing. So we have all of these lessons that we learned from video players, and that was like a little tiny slice of the things that we have found over time. We've done all kinds of usability testing on that custom player, all kinds of usability testing on other people's players, and as they're implemented into their sites, for retail e-commerce sites, for educational sites, for pretty much I think probably 10 to 15 different clients we've done usability testing on their video players, and they all come back with similar issues. So these are things that we have learned, and these are kind of like the three most important things. First lesson, be humble. Like, you think you have produced something that is outstanding and phenomenal, it's probably not anywhere near as good as you want it to be, okay? And that's okay, right? Because some of these other lessons, this works well. Lesson number 2, usability, like it actually being usable is much, much more important than something being compliant. Right? Compliance, and I've said this for, I think, probably close to, I think the first time I said it on a big stage was in 2005, and I said, compliance is your starting point, it's not your end point. We really need to make sure that we're pushing towards usability, because how well it is or how easy it is to use is going to be the ultimate arbiter of whether or not this thing is accessible. And the third lesson, never stop learning. We were like, yes, we know what we're doing, but at the same time, we don't know what we're doing, right? We all need to kind of have that, and that kind of goes with maintaining that humility. We should never stop learning, and so we're continuing to move forward. There are things that we want to do with the next version of that player, should we be lucky enough to kind of keep working with them. If you remember that, the little timer on the left-hand side, we decided, what a really good thing a really good solution for everybody would be to just make that clickable, so that as soon as you click on it or tap on it, it makes it editable, type in a number, and go to that spot in the video, right? It could still look like it looks like, just like a regular timer or the regular timestamp, but if we tap on it or click on it, make it editable, and then off we go to that spot in the video. There's all kinds of other little things that we could do. Did you see the order of the buttons that we put in there? There was play, there was rewind, and fast forward. We want to explore that next. Like, what order do people expect the buttons to be in? Should it be rewind, play, fast forward? Should it be play, rewind, fast forward? Like, what button order makes the most sense and is the most useful? Maybe it doesn't matter at all, right? We want to explore that and figure those kinds of things out. So that's kind of the third lesson from this, is to never stop learning. That's the kind of stuff that we try to talk about, or I try to talk about all the time, is that we're really talking about making this stuff better for everyone. And this is the kind of thing, and I like this, I'm going to put this plug in here. This is kind of why I was hired as the Chief Experience Officer at Level Access. I used to run a company called Simply Accessible, and that we were like a smaller company, but our entire focus was on the usability side of accessibility. And that is part of what brings me to Level Access, is to be the Chief Experience Officer. Accessibility is not like you see in different organizations. It rolls up into, at many many institutions, it rolls up into compliance or risk and legal. At other places, it falls under disability services or whatever it is. I'm a big believer that accessibility belongs rightly as part of user experience or something broader, but it's part of experience. We talk about customer experience and client experience, user experience, student experience, whatever it is. There's lots of different facets to the experience side of things. I'll put this up here right now just in case you want to get in touch later, because I know like I lead into the happy hour, and my last slide that has this on it, you're all going to be already like walking out the door. So I'm going to put it up there now so that you can get at it. If you want to email me, feel free, derek.featherstone@levelaccess.com. I'm Feather on Twitter as well if you're kind of following along there. I will also say too, also because I know at the end you won't stick around for this slide, so I'll put this one out as well. If you want to connect, if you want me to help you, if you want to get the slides, go to that URL, LA Teaches, so lateach.es/accessnyc. Happy to connect with you on there and start some discussions. Now, back to your regularly scheduled program. We do usability studies all the time, and we consider them to be kind of like accessibility's best friend. And one of the main reasons for that is we learn stuff in usability tests all the time. In fact, we've seen things, I have seen this happen when we have done usability sessions on a product or a thing. We've done usability studies with people with disabilities and people without disabilities, and almost every time we have seen the exact same usability problems. Except here's one critical difference. People with disabilities found them faster, they were more pronounced, like really obvious. A thing that slows me down by 2 seconds in a usability test may be hardly even noticeable. But that same thing that slows me down by 2 seconds might slow somebody down that's using Dragon Naturally Speaking by like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So we talk about this, and we've worked with lots of different companies, and I do workshops. So I used to be a high school teacher. I'm big on the teaching side of things, and I do full day workshops with people. And almost every single time people say this to me or some version of this to me at the end, like, all of this stuff is great. You know, you just made all those designs more accessible, but you just made that a better design, period. Like, that is a better design. It's better for more people. It's better for people without disabilities as much as it is better for people with disabilities. And there is something to that. And I'm a big believer that this is one of the most important lessons that we have picked up, is that, and I believe this, and I want to test this hypothesis at some point, but I'm a big believer that I would bet money, I should maybe not go down this road. I think that we could do usability testing on any product only with people with disabilities and get incredible results from it that help everybody else anyway. And that's something that we've picked up when we've done side-by-side testing and seen literally the same usability issues found by people with and without disabilities. It's kind of like this moment of there is something here. And when I hear this kind of feedback, it tells me that there's even more there. So designing for an accessible outcome ultimately makes it better for everyone. That is something that we have seen in almost every project, and you've probably seen that in projects that you've been on too. In fact, this afternoon we've heard that several times, like the last one, like, hey, we did this for other reasons and it actually made it more accessible. It works the other way as well. So there's a lot of truth to this. We look at disability often as a usability amplifier. So I talked about something that slows, a usability issue that slows me down by 2 seconds might slow down somebody using Dragon by 2 minutes. That is the same usability issue, but it's amplified by that fact that person might have a disability. I'm also a believer that if we make a usability enhancement that is accessibility focused, and it helps me, so let's say we make an improvement to a system from an accessibility perspective, and the impact of that on me is like it makes me go twice as fast. I think, and I haven't tested this yet, but I want to test this, I think that it might actually help people with disabilities go 10 times as fast. So it helps me by a factor of 2. It helps somebody with a disability by a factor of 10. That same little change. So that's what we mean when we're talking about disability is as a usability amplifier. One of the things that we have seen, and there's ways there's lots of different ways that we can achieve the outcome of accessibility. My favorite happens to be, like, we can do it by accident. Sometimes we make things accessible by accident. It happens all the time, more than we care to admit, but we want to be intentional. And so one of the best mechanisms and processes for making this intentional is to embrace the practice of inclusive design. So I also would encourage you to think of inclusive design this way. When we design with people with disabilities, not just in mind, but literally design with them as co-creators and as co-designers as part of the process, when we practice that level of inclusion, we're actually setting ourselves up for the things that are coming ahead of the curve. So I'll give you an example. Right now, some things that we've learned from usability studies. So today's usability finding is tomorrow's accessibility standard. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. We did this testing with, we did a lot of airline work over the last 4 years with multiple airlines because of the Air Carrier Access Act. They all needed to bring their sites up into line and make sure that they were accessible. And so one of the pieces of that we talked about with all of our airline clients was we need to make sure that we're doing usability testing with people with disabilities on this as well. And one of the things that we found was these, and so a lot of designers and developers create these custom looks. And so these are custom radio buttons that I don't know how well you can see them because they're very low contrast. They're super subtle in the interface. Some of you might not even be able to see them, right? So these little tiny radio buttons that were customized, they don't look like operating system level radio buttons. So they were highly customized. And when we called them out when we were doing our manual testing of the interface, we're like, these don't have enough contrast on them, right? And some of the pushback, and this, not even this airline, like we worked with 5 different airlines and they all had custom radio buttons and they all pushed back on it. Like, but you know, color contrast rules in accessibility, they don't apply to radio buttons, they just apply to text. Because as it's written, it applies to text, right? But we said, cool, we know what the rules say. We also know that this is going to fail. Right? This is going to be an issue. And sure enough, in usability testing, people had huge problems even knowing that there was anything there to select. Right? People with low vision, people that even had theoretically regular vision, right? Couldn't see those radio buttons. Lo and behold, it's 4 years later and we have WCAG 2.1, 1.411. Color contrast now applies to interface components. It applies to graphics. Some of those airline clients were using iconography that was in very subtle colors, and it didn't have enough contrast. Well, those icons were meaningful, and they were about the same shape as a character. That low contrast meant that they couldn't be seen, and that meaning wasn't understood. Lo and behold, it's in there now, right? The usability studies and the inclusive design practice that you have, remember that? I think I said it like 2 slides ago. Today's usability finding is tomorrow's accessibility standard because every single thing that is in the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines right now comes from some basis of research. We have seen these things and therefore we're putting these guidelines in place so that these things don't continue to happen. So this happened with 1.411 with contrast. It happened with 2.4.11 with keyboard shortcuts. The new sort of rule about keyboard shortcuts has always been a best practice. It basically says if you're using single key keyboard shortcuts, that they are overrideable, that they are customizable. Right? There's lots of apps like Gmail that have single key shortcuts that may interfere with somebody's assistive technology. So we need to allow people to customize those if we're going to build them into the interface. That is something that we've been talking about that in the accessibility world since probably 2003, 2002, but now it's like, this is the best way to do it. And the last one that I put in here, this is just 3 examples. There's lots more, but the 2.4.12, the label for the thing should be in the name of the thing. So ultimately, if you've got like a hidden label on something underneath the screen, like in hidden text, that's like the name of a control, you have to include the visible part in that name that's underneath the screen. And we have seen this happen over and over and over again with people that use Dragon Naturally Speaking. So I don't know how much you know about Dragon, but Dragon is a voice recognition piece of technology. If I want to use Dragon, one of the things that I do, the mantra is basically, I see it and then I say it. So if I want to, if we just pretend this is a web page for a minute and it's got 2 links on it. One of them is a link to WCAG 2.1 and one of them is to 2.4.1.2. So if I see that and I want to click on that thing, I will use Dragon and I will say, click WCAG 2.1. Or I would say, click WCAG 2.1. Dragon will go through the page, it will figure out what I need to click, and then it will go and click that. Well, what if the text underneath the screen doesn't say WCAG 2.1? What if it says something else, like, I'm going to make something up. What if it just said guidelines, right? What if the text underneath there was guidelines? Well, guidelines would be what Dragon would recognize me saying. So if I said click guidelines, it would then click that. But because WCAG 2.1 is up there, I have to make WCAG 2.1 part of the underlying label. So that's ultimately what this means. We've been recommending that for the last 6 or 7 years, and now it's finally a thing. Right? It's not like this stuff is now suddenly not accessible because of these new rules. It wasn't accessible before. We just didn't have a systematic way of kind of addressing it and talking about it. Does that all make sense? Right? Today's usability findings are tomorrow's accessibility standards. So I want to get real. How much time do I have left? Are we done? What time am I supposed to be going till? 5:30? I'm going to give you one example then. Can we do that? Like, your happy hour shouldn't be out there. It should be in here with me, all right? You know what I'm saying? So we're going to get real here really quick. Practical takeaways and tips. I love this one. It's one of my favorite things to do. Design for headings-only consumption. We almost all know that people that use screen readers have the ability to go from heading to heading to heading within a page. It's one of the first things that we're taught. There's still lots of people that use screen readers that don't know that they can go from heading to heading to heading within a page. But for those that do, this is a useful thing. So I like taking techniques, project an accessibility need onto something, and then improve the interface for everybody. So I fly a lot because I speak at a lot of conferences and do a lot of trainings. And so airline search sites are like the bane of my existence. So here's an example. If you take a look up here, we've got this set of results, and we are currently sorted by price. Other options are departure time and shortest flight. Now, when I say sort by price, I get the set of results back, and you will always see the price listed at the beginning of each record. Pretty straightforward. It's kind of there. That's just how we do things. Now, when I say that I want to sort by departure time is actually buried inside the record a little bit further, right? And if I say I want to sort by shortest flight, the actual duration is buried even further in that record. Now, if I use a very simple approach and say, what can we do to design for headings-only consumption? Can we make this? We know that screen reader users, people that are consuming that page using a screen reader, they love headings. We'll call it that. We'll just say it's a love. So can we design this so that somebody that is only consuming headings can get through this interface quicker? Because if I'm here and let's just assume that the top of each record is a heading. So $1,840 plus taxes and fees, $1,840, whatever it is. Let's say there's 20 results on there. They all have a heading that's all around the price. So if we design for headings-only consumption, what if we did something like this so that when I say sort by departure time, I make the heading include the departure time so that it now says $1,397 total, 10 a.m. departure time. I now immediately know if I have expressed that I want to sort by departure time, I have now expressed that, so why don't we let that bubble up to the first heading in the record, or the heading of each record, so that somebody that is going through heading by heading hears the price, because price is always going to matter, but they hear the price and then they hear the departure time. They now don't need to go in any further. They can just say, nope, not a good departure time, move to the next one, move to the next one, move to the next one. This is the one I want. Or this is one that I'm willing to explore. If I say sort by shortest flight, why don't we bubble up duration to the top and make that part of the heading? $1,501 total cost, 3 hours, 47 minutes duration. And it's not like we took the duration out. I'm Canadian, did I say that right? Out. 3 hours and 47 minutes. The duration is still where it is in the record, but we've bubbled it up because somebody has asked for it, right? We keep the record the same way, but we add that to the heading. So now the headings read 1,501 total cost, 3 hours, 47 minutes duration, 3,050 total cost, 3 hours, 51 minutes duration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have designed specifically for that behavior that we know people with certain accessibility needs will actually use and rely on. People that use screen readers aren't the only ones that rely on headings. Many people with different learning disabilities may have extensions that collapse an entire page down and show only headings so that they can click on each heading to expand it. So if we put that useful information in the heading at the heading level, we make it easier for somebody to decide, should I go further into this record or not? All good? Every single person that I show that to, when I say we put this accessibility lens on it, almost every single person says, I don't have a disability and I want that, right? Every single thing that we do with an accessibility lens, when we put that lens on a project or a design, almost always makes it better for people without disabilities too. I think of it as projecting extremes onto a design and having those that surface all kinds of new iterations and new ideas that can make that interface better. So my big belief, we should be designing with people with disabilities, not for people with disabilities, and we need to include people with disabilities actually in the process. Michael Masutha said this in, I think, the early to mid 90s, nothing about us without us, and we're seeing that surface a whole lot more these days, right? So that's something to consider when, whatever your design process is, whatever your release process is, your development process, can we get to the point where people are enabled to participate in the process? Are we pulling people in? Are we designing with people with disabilities, not just for people with disabilities? That is the fastest 1 hour talk I've ever given because we did it in 37 minutes. I'm happy to take questions, but I also know it's like I'm cutting into happy hour, so if we want to do questions, I'm happy to do that. I don't know if we have any flexibility on the timing out there. I'm just going to pretend that you guys just want to hang out and talk with me. We can do that out in happy hour as well, but happy to keep going.
Hey, Derek.
Hi.
So that last piece you brought up, the heading, wouldn't have the heading been match? Or what level of headings would you have put that in? Just because that was kind of
I think probably at that level, probably an H2 or something,
okay.
So that somebody is, there's probably, there's other design related changes, but I would say the H1 on the page is probably something about the matching results. I would probably make it way better. Okay. I mean, that's a horrible heading, but probably something like, I'm going to be really verbose here just to make it really obvious, but we found 184 results for trips from Ottawa to wherever I was going. Where was I going? Oh, to Columbus, right? 184 results for trips from Ottawa to Columbus, right? Or something like that. So that's probably the H1. Yeah. And then the H2 is $1,500 total cost, 3 hours, 47 minutes duration. I might actually build in date things. I'm like already revising it in my head. Yeah. So maybe the H1 says something about the dates that we searched in it. Okay. And then the H2s are like boom, 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 boom.
Okay.
So if we were using a links list and we went to this, so there's only going to be those 3 links on the page, right? So, I mean, there's more links, but those are the ones that are related to that. So they click on departure time, the page is going to reload, they're going to come to that, they're going to get that new page. They've made that choice, and it should just be like resorted and using. Well, and that would happen. That's not even a function of the page. That's like the a function of the screen reader and its functionality itself. But yeah.